Good morning and welcome to the News in 5 for October 2022. Hard to believe. I am your host, Peter Martin, president of Gosselin Martin Associates. The News in 5 is your monthly review of the world in healthcare facilities management. It is no frills. We still use paper, not a lot of high-tech glitz. We give 5 stories that we cover every News in 5. We look at the market, we look at the organization, and then we give you a career best practice. Today will be a little bit different. I'm going to roll 3 stories into one. Three items I've been thinking about for the past month. But before we get to there, I would like to, as always, please bring your attention to the Gosselin Martin Associates webpage with our jobs, goslinassociates.com/jobs. We have roles in Massachusetts, New Jersey, Ohio, North Dakota, Connecticut. So if you're interested, please look, pass along to your friends. It's also recording on Halloween. So a happy Halloween. I guess I don't have any orange or black on or a mask. Maybe this is a mask. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to the News in 5. So recently we completed a job survey, a market survey, excuse me. We always start with a look at the market. And so we'll be releasing those results over the next couple of months before the end of the year. But I just wanted to talk about the market in general, a couple of things. One of the items I want to address first, I guess, is backdoor references. So as you may or may not know, Gosselin Martin Associates, we work in healthcare facilities management recruiting, partnering with organizations. We also do education, we do podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to touch on backdoor references. If you're an HR department, do you conduct them? If you're a candidate, do you know what they are? But backdoor references sometimes occur where you may be interviewing for a role and the organization you're recruiting for will talk to people they know who may know you or who do know you to get a reference about you. So it's not a reference that you as a candidate put forward. It's a connection that an organization who is hiring you may have, and they talk to that person or persons to get info about you. And just a word of warning about that. Listen, I know it's difficult these days to hire people and everybody wants to do the best that they can to know who they're hiring first. But there are instances where backdoor references, if you're an organization, especially if you don't know the context from which that backdoor reference is giving their reference, may not be fair to your candidate. So I guess I would say if you're conducting backdoor references and you get a reference about a person that causes you to say, boy, I don't think I want to move forward with that. If you like that candidate, if you've been impressed that candidate, you probably owe it to yourself to do a little bit more digging. That's always my concern on the backdoor reference. We know a lot of people, I'll be honest, I don't conduct them. I don't think they're fair to the candidate, especially if you don't know the context that that person is giving. You know, I was working with a candidate once and a backdoor reference was conducted on him. This was years ago. And the organization did a backdoor reference. And I told the candidate that he wasn't getting the role. I didn't tell him why. And he mentioned a person who ended up being that backdoor reference, who the organization had contacted. He was able to piece it together and he gave me the context behind that relationship. So it's difficult to hire people these days. It's difficult to find people these days, but a word of warning about that backdoor reference. And if you do conduct them, maybe you try to counter that to see if that's an isolated incident. A couple of months ago on the News in 5, we talked about all of us have bad experiences in jobs that have gone poorly. And there's probably a person that everybody connect with who could talk badly about you and talk badly about me. So that exists, even though we need sometimes to contextualize things. So that's the first one about the backdoor reference. The other item I wanted to mention, I guess this would tie to the organization. We just posted on I told you this is no frills. I use paper here. Not a lot of editing, but we do our high reliability podcast. I hope you listen to it. We released one last week. It was a Halloween podcast. It's a roundtable. We had 3 people on it. We had Claire Meeks from Charlotte, North Carolina. Claire was formerly at Atrium Health and is now working SFSI. It's a software organization down in North Carolina. They do CMMS systems. They work with hospitals across the country. So Claire was recruited to join them. Happened just recently. Corey Myshak also joined us. Corey formerly worked at Advocate Aurora out in Wisconsin, Illinois, Wisconsin and Illinois. There's no Wisconsin, Illinois. I know having gone to college in Wisconsin, I know the acronym that the Wisconsin people give the Illinois people, so they would not want to be Wisconsin, Illinois. So Corey was at Advocate Aurora. He changed jobs just recently. He went to Rogers Behavioral Health. They're national, coast to coast. And my other guest was Vance Vinson. Vance works at Miami Valley Hospital in Dayton, Ohio. And it's funny. So when we set this podcast up in December, when we set it up in August, Corey and Claire were both employed in healthcare. So we did this in August. Now in October, when we're recording, they're out of healthcare. And they called me earlier this month. They said, "Hey, Pete," or not earlier this month, about a week before the podcast, actually, and said, Claire in particular said, I'm changing jobs. You still want me on the podcast? I said, great. It would be good to have you on. And I bring this up because their experience speaks to something that I tell the organizations we're working with all the time. Speed to market is really important these days. Organizations, and I know it's harder in healthcare facilities management. I know it can be harder at a director level because there's often multiple people who you have to interview with, but both Claire and Corey spoke to the speed with which the organizations they hired moved at. In Claire's case, it was quick. It was 2 weeks or so, and they didn't skimp on the interview process. Corey, same thing, very similar. And Corey actually said the speed with which this organization moved to hire him was impressive, because it showed that they could get things done. And he read into that, I think rightly so, that if they can move this fast, then they want to hire me, and they're probably going to move quickly too. So I think, I've been harping on this for a while now, and I know it can be really difficult, but if you're an organization that wants a candidate, speed in getting them in and getting them hired is at a premium, because if they're interviewing with you, they're probably interviewing with other people as well. And so I thought that was really interesting tidbit that came out of that podcast. The podcast is entitled "What Keeps You Up at Night?" And I think my 3 guests did a really great job talking about the market. So I'd encourage you to listen to that. But, hiring organizations, realize that your competition is moving quickly. So if you want a person, especially in a limited market, then you probably want to make sure that you can move quickly to the best of your ability. The other item I wanted to mention today is relative to career best practice. And I'm not sure this is a career best practice at all, to be honest. But as I said, we did our market survey. We conducted it late summer. It ended. And one of the questions in that one was, what are the most significant issues facing healthcare facilities management? Check all that apply. And the top 2, and it's probably no surprise, was number 1, staff shortages in the trades. 86% of people mentioned that. And the number 2 issue that was mentioned was salaries not adequate for the scope of the role. That was at 68%. So 68%. In our podcast, we talked about burnout, a little bit about burnout. We talked about people leaving healthcare. Again, Claire, and while they're both still involved in healthcare, and obviously Corey is because he's in behavioral healthcare, they left the acute care world. So we talked a little bit about that, but Vance also got on to how it's just really difficult from a salary perspective and from a trades perspective to keep people. And so, that issue, I tie those together because I think they're, connected. Salaries, shortages in the trades, speed to market. I think those, that podcast, I think really gave a good look into how the market exists today and the challenges that organizations certainly face out there today. I think the other item, and we're seeing this more and more, and I'm not saying this from our recruiting perspective at all, but with some of the organizations we're working with, and even if we're not working with you, I don't know, maybe you're seeing this as you recruit at your director levels, your manager levels. More and more folks are not asking for, but they're wondering, can they work remotely, or can there be alternate work arrangements where they can do work in a remote basis? And it's very difficult to do at a director level, but some folks have come up with processes. And again, I'm not necessarily pushing for it. I'm not saying it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. I'm saying it's out there. I'm saying people are asking for it. I'm saying I've seen some accommodations made at the director level and the vice president level, where if an organization wants somebody, and that doesn't mean they're working remote all the time. It might be something as simple as every 2 weeks on a Friday, this person is home. Maybe they work in the Midwest, say they're working in Wisconsin, and they live in New York State. Every Friday, they work from home. They're still connected. They're not away. So we are seeing more of that. At the VP level, I've seen a couple of these. And I think in a weird way, it might be a little bit easier at the vice president level than at the director level. But alternate work arrangements are something that is certainly increasing as the market. And again, I just bring it to your attention because it's certainly a trend in the market. The other one of the questions too in our survey was talking about work-life balance. And I was interested to see what that answer would have been. Do you feel that you have a work-life balance? And 58% of folks said that they did, which I thought was really interesting. Let me make sure I get you the right number here. Yeah. Do you feel there's an appropriate level of work-life balance? 58% said yes. So I don't know if, to me, I was kind of surprised by that. I thought that was a high number. I thought that was a good number. I don't know if maybe you thought it would have been higher or not, but I just thought it was interesting. And I think certainly those work accommodations are part of a work-life balance that people are looking for. You can go to our career hub, with the little poster for it there, making sense of what goes on. Love working with candidates, individuals on their career. So that's a little bit different news in 5. I appreciate you watching for October 2022. We will be back. Hard to believe Thanksgiving is next month. November is next month. You can tell the seasons are changing. We're in a little warmer weather gear. So I appreciate you tuning in. I'm Peter Martin, president of Gosselin Martin Associates. Have a great day. Thank you for listening.